Hey guys, welcome to Clockwork, down to Noodles for another breakdown of Solo Leveling episode number 8. Welcome back. We've had our week out. I didn't actually check out the point 5 episode just because I was told that there's nothing that contributed to the plot that wasn't covered already in the episodes. And because we've been breaking it down on the channel, I felt strongly that we hadn't actually missed anything from the previous 7 episodes. But today's episode was awesome, a return to form. I also think there's a few things starting to go into motion, so there's a few things I want to discuss in the episode. I hope you guys are looking after yourselves, having a great time, and we are slowly heading towards the end of the season, so very shortly you're going to get my overview for next season, and you're also going to get my breakdown of this season, just so I go through my top 3 animes and what I think of the season as a whole. I have now got shows that I plan on making reviews of. It must have just been me not feeling great, so I've gone back through it and I've picked a few out that I think might be of interest to break down on the channel. So before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed, and let's start covering this week's episode. It does feel like it's been a bit longer than just a week of not seeing our characters. That must mean that I am missing the show, and I really did actually miss getting some answers. Let's talk about the deal first. So we have Jin going back to the guy. I can't actually remember his name. I'm very bad with names in most animes, and I suffer with this in Apothecary Diaries too, so it's not just this one. But the guy with the armor, I will get his name eventually, who proposed that, you know, if you come work for me, I'll give you a lot of money if you're going to help me set up my guild, because he's trying to set up this 6th guild that we've heard about, and Jin has finally accepted. At the end of the day, money is money. We know that it would definitely aid Jin's family, and I can't imagine looking after his mum's treatments and also his sister and her being in like uni probably soon. It's not going to be a easy ride, so the money will definitely help them even if he has no plans on using it himself. It's just interesting to see Jin suggesting that they just fluff the last 6 spots in the raids each time, very similar to how the event that actually got them into this situation in the first place basically went down. Hopefully in this case that Jin does actually care a little bit more about the people who go on to these missions. Interesting to see if the events of him obviously deleting some humans has actually hardened him up, and maybe he's going to lose sight of humans. It'll be interesting to see if it's going to have any negative effects. Something I said last time anyway was that I wanted to see if Jin was affected by his decisions in the dungeon last time of him self-deleting. It's a very big step. I am wondering if he's going to treat these extra people on each of these raids any differently, or if he's actually going to just sit and chill. It's a worry that he's trying to obviously keep his secret, but now there's going to be more people involved. And something that I think I've learned from a few channels is the more people you get involved, if you're trying to commit a crime, the more likely you are to have it all blow open. And I think people are starting to cotton on with him, and there's a few places in the episode this week as well where I think people are definitely onto him. And it might just be like people having like these suspicions starting to arise a little bit. Now, Dad of Exposition, the kid's father, telling us basically about the 5 guilds. So that we have these 5 guilds who have monopolized the gates and all their resources. But the big question I want to know is who is actually organizing the gates in the first place. So I believe it is the Hunters organization. They're a branch of the government. But what connection, if any, do they have to actual gates in themselves? These gates seem to be out of their control, so whether they know or understand a bit more and they're not letting on, that could be the case because they're higher up. I always expect agencies of the government, when it goes higher and higher, to always have secrets that they're not exactly going to divulge to the public, so I do wonder if that's the case with these gates in particular. Whoever is managing the windows that keep appearing in front of Jin definitely has a sense of humour, sending him a bingo card, whether this is the booby prize, but it does make me wonder, is there other people playing? Is there somebody else out there who's also receiving these messages? At one point, I did wonder if the survivors of the first dungeon were all maybe also getting these windows, because I think later on we find out that Mr. Song, the guy who was the leader, he's awakened now as a mage, which is good for him because he's lost his arm and he was primarily a swordsman before, but at least as a mage he has a purpose and he can get through and he still has the ability to combat. But I do wonder, because they're survivors, maybe they also have stuff that they're seeing. This is all those big questions that are up in the air and we're still not any closer to having solved for us just yet. But we do get this week to actually check in with those survivors. Now, we knew there were a few and each of them seemed to be in their own little dilemmas. A lot of them are dealing with personal issues. That's the reason why they can't yet retire, because you would think after the horrors of that first dungeon that people would just retire, especially the guy who lost an arm, or the guy who the guy with the kid who actually turned on Song. You would have thought that somebody would have just gone, I've had enough, but it would seem that they all have their reasons to continue being hunters. It does seem as well that the lower level hunters seem to do a lot more of the cleanup work, the unwanted work they don't want doing. I did wonder if we had a bit of foreshadowing going on with the dude with his happy family, because normally if you see happy characters and there's kids involved and there's a whole I love you, I'm coming back, it's fine, don't worry, it always seems like a big foreshadow. Something bad's gonna happen, this guy's gonna die, and I hope it's not the case. I do actually have some very bad vibes about the mission that we're about to go on, and I'll explain it when we get there. But I don't want this guy to die. He's already survived one really bad dungeon. I don't want him to actually now go into another one. Let's talk about the guy who I keep saying looks like Endeavor from My Hero Academia, the redhead guy. He is cool. I do like his design. I think it's awesome. I don't remember the name. I'm very slow at trying to get names. I've got a few of them this week. I filled a few more in, but it's going to take me a little bit more time hearing these names to get them actually in my head. We hear that the 6th proposed guild, which is our boy, has started to headhunt. And it's weird that they're headhunting before they've become an actual guild, because I presume they haven't actually done their 19 raids. Interesting to see that they're starting to approach people. We also do get to know that the guy who I think looks like Endeavor, he doesn't like interviews, and you can see him getting angry at this guy, presumably who's organizing him, a manager or some kind of duty, because he also talks to the other lady as well. He's like the head, I guess, and they all go to him when they've got issues, or he's trying to sort things out. It's weird to see that they're already starting to recruit, despite the fact they haven't actually established the guild just yet. But I get this one right. I will actually get this one right in particular. Juhi, the girl. So the girl from the dungeon who ended up having to be knocked out. I will say in this case, she didn't actually abandon him. She just froze, essentially wasn't going to go anywhere, and Jin didn't want her to die there, so he essentially got the guy to take him or her away because they had to knock her out. So in her defense, she didn't go anywhere. She had to be forcibly removed from the dungeon. But we do know that she's been going through a lot of struggle. She's traumatized. She's unable to actually produce any magic on focus. So we've already seen her in a situation earlier when Jin had to step in very quickly and lob an old sword at the monster to kill it. We know that she's struggling. We also see a little peek into her life where her family just thinks she's a burden, which is really, really sad. I guess a wake-up call to the realities that all these people are going through. Everybody's going through their own struggles. Looks like this week we're going into a battle which sees them all reunited, which makes me think something here is up. But I will say that new guild has balls because they're trying to poach S-classes. And what I have gathered so far from the S-classes is they're very far and few between. Like barely anybody is an S-class. And I had presumed they were already heads of their own guild. I think the redhead guy is a guild master because we saw him practicing and it was insane, and his guys were like, oh, leaders over there. So somebody's above him perhaps when it comes to organizing all this stuff. Informed about the Jeju Island event, and I do think we, the audience, have already had a glimpse into what may have happened, or at least the setup for the actual event. What we can tell now is that the island is fading from memory because people don't want to remember what happened because it was so bad. They're trying to just forget, and we know that memorials keep being held there. So the entire island probably got wiped out from a really bad gate perhaps, or a gate break maybe is what my guess is going to be. Endeavor apparently left teammates behind, and this is what I think is where we saw them in episode 1 when the anime was trying to show us about the idea of hunters. It showed us these really high class guys beating up bugs on an island. That I think is the Jeju Island start of the event, because obviously we see it when things are in hand, not going out of control just yet, and we definitely see the redhead guy there. So I believe that is the Jeju Island event. We will probably get more information on it, but for now, at least it's not coming out of nowhere, because I did see some people feeding back on the anime as a whole, saying that they feel like it flicks around too much. I don't think it does. I think there's a few scenes this week where I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what that was. So I think there's a bit where some guy's asking somebody to help kill them. but I don't know what that was about because I didn't catch the face, or the face didn't seem memorable or anything, so I don't know what was going on in that little chunk. But so far I do think things are lining up. I understand that that chunk with the hunters in episode 1 is now to explain that went wrong. Jin also explaining how he's still alive and in one piece was a bit of an interesting scene, because obviously the people who were in that dungeon, especially Mr. Song, he saw what had happened. Having to explain it away and be like, oh, it's fine, I was in the hospital, it was already back when I like that. That's where you're like, okay, are there chinks in the story here? Are people going to start doubting it? Because he must be wondering how Jin got out, because he was sacrificed. The last thing he saw was he became a sacrifice. I don't know what he's thinking about how the guy is still standing in front of him. Now, the after effects of having them all reunite where nobody can actually look at them in the face, because obviously they left him behind, that idea of guilt, which is going to be interesting to see how these guys go through this next dungeon, because I don't think they're going to be very united as a guild. I think they're going to be very fragmented. There's going to be a lack of trust. I think even though they say that, it's okay, and I think the guy apologizes or he asks to be the guild leader, and they're like, okay, cool, you can do that. But I do wonder if there's going to be any sore feelings between the two, or between any of them, because they're all fragmented. And as we can see now, is they're even more fragmented because 3 of the people in the 8-person team, they're convicts. They're people who are trying to shorten their terms in prison. And obviously, I know there's this hot guy. And yeah, I'm going to keep calling him hot because I know who your VA is. Kang, I believe his name is. They're going to say that, oh, it's okay, he's a B ranker who can deal with these C rankers. And I'm like, okay, fine. But they're still very, I guess, interesting people to throw into a dungeon. I really hope that this dungeon isn't important, and I really hope it is actually what you're claiming it is, because I'm a bit suspicious, and there's a bit where Kang is curious about Jin, and I do wonder if he was maybe in the hospital, and I can't remember when they were trying to reevaluate Jin, and I do think they're onto him. I think people are onto the guy who has seemingly survived a number of dungeons now where it seemingly wouldn't have been possible. So I think people might be onto him earlier than it is. But Kang, let's talk about Kang, the hot guy, because he is hot. The voice actor for him is Uchiyama Kuki, and he's basically the guy who voices Higurashi in My Hero Academia. I keep referencing that anime. It is coming back next season, but people mainly recognise the voice actor if I say that. He's been in a lot. He's been a lot of bad guys. He's an awesome bad guy as well, but he has also been good guys as well. He's a cool character, cool VA, so I did recognise the voice. I was like, oh, I know exactly who this is without even having to look, but I did double check and it definitely is. It would seem that we have a shortage of people, and in my brain I was low-key going, oh, because everybody keeps dying in these dungeons, no wonder you're kind of short. Can't imagine as well that the call to be a hunter is great. I don't think many people would want to willingly pick it as their first idea on a CV or as a job. It seems like something's going on. I'm suspicious. I think this might be a setup. There's a reason why all of these people are being united back into a group to go back into this dungeon, and there's prisoners there. I do believe that Kang might be on to Jinwoo as well, and I think he's there trying to perhaps seek him, because the name of next week's episode is You've Been Hiding Your Powers, so I think it's all going to come out regardless. So it will be interesting to see what the consequences of that is. Is he just gonna get called, what was the name, a switcher or something, where they could hide their powers? I think the armored guy was thinking it. He was thinking that he was one of those guys who hid their mana, who was able to actually lower the score and hide who he actually was. I don't know what the result of that's gonna be, but if somebody from the Hunters organization sees Jinwoo in action, and he's probably gonna have to be in action at some point, I know he's probably going to hope that he's going to blend into the background with these other people, but I have a feeling those prisoners are going to go rogue, and he might have to take some measures, hopefully not deleting in front of the Hunters organization. But it will be interesting to also see what Kang's going to do, because if he's feeling confident that he can control 3 people who are sea level, interesting to see what his abilities are. So a fantastic episode, and I can't wait to see where we're going. But I do think there's balls starting to roll, especially with this 6th guild starting to appear, and then stuff is going on with our S-class fighters, especially the girl and the redhead guy who's Endeavour for me at the moment. I think there's stuff going on, and I want to see where we're going with the plot. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys too are finding this show interesting. We have 4 episodes left. This one will go on for an extra week past Apothecary Diaries endings. I may have to hold back on my end of season review just to get a final score out of my top 3. But I'll see you guys again soon. Take care. Bye bye.